Hello class, Growth of America students. We are going to be discussing the IGS project today. It stands for Intergenerational Snapshot. I think up here it says Intergenerational Study, but the original name for it was Intergenerational Snapshot because it shows a snapshot of your family's history and American history throughout generations, what maybe other family members have lived through. And the IGS project is a project that the New Prague High School Growth of America 10th grade students have been doing since probably the late 90s. And it's changed here or there a little bit over the years. Maybe you have friends or older siblings that have done it. You've heard about it. Some of you maybe have not heard about it at all. Well, this year, due to COVID, we are kind of cutting down the amount of things that we have to do. So it's a little bit different than in years past. But it's both a family project and an American history project, and I'll kind of go through a few things that we need to do. So over here, you have a link to this in your daily calendar, and you can kind of see there's guidelines and steps and instructions on how to do it. What you're looking for is you're going to do a family tree to the best of your ability, and I'll click on that in a little bit. You're going to do a self-historical essay where you are going to write about historical events that have happened in your life that have affected you. You're going to write a parent historical essay where you're going to interview your parent about historical events that they remember and maybe affected them, or at least they can look back on and say, yep, I remember where I was when this happened, or I remember what happened here. And so you're going to learn about some historical events that occurred in their life. And then you are going to interview a grandparent about their life, basically. This is going to be a biography. Maybe how their life has changed over the years, or what it was like when they were a kid compared to now, what they're doing now, those types of things. So it's going to be a biography on a grandparent. So you're going to interview a grandparent, and then you have a grandparent biography you're going to write. And then lastly, you're going to put together kind of a family visual layout where there's both artifacts, and I'll talk about what an artifact is later, and then also photographs, things like that. So it's cut down. We used to do probably 8 papers, and as you can see here, you are now down to 1, 2, 3 papers. So it goes from 8 to 3. So first, let's take a look at the family tree. And here it is. There are different, you don't have to use this, but what we're looking for is you're going to go back and find, you've got your parents' names, father, mother, and then grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, with some different dates, birth dates, when people were married, and when they passed away. So you've got options there. Some people haven't died, so you would just delete that. Some people maybe were never married, so you could delete that. It's kind of up to you. It's your family's project. If you have questions on it, ask. Some people have a very difficult time finding great-great-grandparents. Some people have a difficult time finding great-grandparents. So what we're doing is we're going to say go as far back as you can, but ask at least 3 different people. Okay, so maybe you asked your mom, and maybe you asked your grandma, and then maybe you asked an aunt or uncle. So you've asked at least 3 people to try to go back as far as you can. You didn't just try once and, okay, mom didn't know, so now I'm not going to ask anybody else. So ask at least 3 people to try to get this information. For some people, it's pretty easy. For some people, it's tough. What if, you were, you don't know your dad's side of the family at all. You have no connection to this side. You won't have this done. That's fine. You're not going to lose any points. Just let me know those types of things. And so, or maybe you don't know mom's side at all. Maybe there's no connection. Maybe you know mom, but she has no contact. Some kids have asked, hey, I'm adopted. What should I do? If you're adopted, you do the family that raised you, right? Your parents who raised you and their parents, right? That's your family. So if you're adopted, that's fine. Some kids have questions, and you just do your dad and do your mom and go back Okay, so sometimes that's a question that pops up. You know, where do you know it's your family, so where do you kind of get your history and your values from and everything like that? It's your family, so um, that's who you would do. So you're going to try to fill this out to the best of your ability. You can see it is 10 completion points after 3 inquiries are made, so go back as far as you can. That's step 1. We'll have a deadline for you there eventually, but that's what I want you working on later today. Your self-historical essay, um, you are going to write your essay about 3 historical events that have affected you in your lifetime. So you're going to have to think back. What are 3 big things that have happened? Maybe it's COVID-19. Maybe you can write about the current pandemic and how it's affected your life, right? So you're going to choose 3 events in national U.S. news that you've lived through and remember well. All right. The format, you're going to write a 5-paragraph written essay. So in the first paragraph, you're going to briefly introduce yourself in 3 to 5 sentences. The second paragraph, you're going to discuss one of the events. You know, this should be 7 to 10 sentences. This is a big paragraph, all right? The first one is shorter, 3 to 5. The second paragraph is 7 to 10, and you're going to write about that historical event that you remember. So you might have to go back and kind of Google some stuff to kind of jog your memory on some different things. But you know, where were you when you heard it? All right, what sticks out about it? What do you remember about it? All right, so that's paragraph 2. Then you're going to pick 2 other events, one for paragraph 3 and one for 4. All right, and you're going to focus on those in 7 to 10 sentences. And then a conclusion, you know, you can write about if there was a pattern among the events you chose to write about. You know, were they positive or negative events? What type of events? Um, you know, what does this kind of tell you about yourself that these are the ones that stuck out in your mind? Things like that. Were they tragedies? Were they exciting? That type of thing. So that's 5 to 7 conclusion. So that's one paper that you're writing. You can see the rubrics over here that you can click on. And any questions you have about this, we'll talk more about it in class. I'll help you with it in class. I just want you taking a look at this at home. Parent historical event is going to be very much the same. You're going to have to sit down with mom or dad and ask some questions here. All right, so same thing, paragraph 1, you're going to be writing a little bit about, you know, who they, you know, kind of who they were, you know, give a little biography of who your parents are or who your parent is, that type of thing, 3 to 5 sentences to introduce your parent, introduce the events, but you have to sit down and ask questions. Right? And we've got some example questions here. And then paragraph 2, talk about event number 1. Paragraph 3, talk about event number 2. Paragraph 4, talk about event number 3. And then paragraph 5, answer both these questions. What did you learn about your interviewee from their answers and this discussion? How did this change your perspective on these events or the interviewee? So maybe these are, you know, maybe you'd never heard of these events before and you're learning something. Maybe you have heard of them and you are now you have a better perspective on them. Next, you're going to interview a grandparent, and we have some questions over here, but you're going to interview a grandparent about their life. This is going to be a biography. You might have some questions about historical events, but this is going to be a longer paper. All right, this is going to be 2 pages, single spaced. So it's going to be a long paper, probably the longest paper of all these. All right, but you're going to interview a grandparent. You can see here, step 1, make an appointment. Your grandparents are busy, some of them. And there you might have to say, hey, this is when I want to talk to you. Some of you may be talking to them over the phone or on, you know, a Google Meet or something, or Zoom is how you might do it. You may talk to them 2 or 3 times to get all these answers. Choose interview questions. So I've got a link to that next to this, but you're going to choose interview questions and ask these questions. You can come up with your own questions. Maybe ask your parents, hey, do you think there are some good questions I should ask grandma or grandpa? All right. And then follow-up questions. Don't just ask, what was your first car? You know, what was your first car, grandma? Oh, a 1975 Buick. then don't move on to the next one. Say, do you ever have any interesting memories about that car? Things like that. And so maybe grandma has stories about that car. Who knows? So ask follow-up questions. Uh, and then lastly, reflection. Think about these questions. Think about the interview and how you're going to start putting that into the paper. The other thing you can add to these papers is your own memories of this person. Think about the things that you did with grandma or grandpa, things like that. And we'll talk more about this in class as well. So you're going to interview, you're going to write the biography. All right, and then lastly, after this, you are going to create a visual layout. And in this visual layout, you're going to have some photographs, some artifacts that kind of explain the life of several different people in your family. So it's not just going to be grandpa or dad or mom, it could be both sides of the family. Very important artifacts like birth certificates, and it's pictures of birth certificates. You're not cutting them up and pasting them in there. Photographs that tell a story. Did you go on any special vacations? Things like that. And we'll talk more about this as we go to better understand it. This is really just a kind of preview to all of this. But the idea is you're going to have about 20 different visuals and artifacts. When is all this going to be due? We're going to break it down. All right, we don't have deadlines over here yet, but we will. And so it's not going to be due all at once. The first thing is going to be your family tree, and that's going to be due maybe next week, week and a half to have that done. And then you're going to start in on maybe the self-historical essay next. Okay, what you could do right now, though, is take some time to maybe call grandma or grandpa and say, hey, this is the project we're going to be doing. Maybe in 3-4 weeks we can set up an interview or multiple interviews, that type of thing. So this is kind of the IGS this year in a nutshell. The first thing you really should be looking to do is working on the family tree. And maybe you got to call grandma or grandpa or multiple grandma and grandpas to figure this information out. All right, that's step one. And then also think about making a interview date to interview a grandparent or a parent about some of these things. But for right now, you're worried about the family tree and working on the family tree to the best of your ability. I'll have more examples in class to show you on some of this stuff, but there are examples over here. There's the rubrics over here to take a look at. And like I said, do you need to really start working on any of this stuff yet? No, just the family tree. Start filling it out to the best of your ability. Do you have to use the family tree that we gave you? No, you could use a different system. You could make your own on your own system or find a different family tree maker. That's up to you. But you can see things you're looking for. You're going to type your name down and when you were born. You're going to type dad's name down when he was born. You could type down when mom and dad are married. If they were never married, don't have a married date. Some people never got married. That's okay. If they're still alive, delete the died part, right? A lot of people's parents are still alive. Delete that, right? Grandparents, delete the died part if they're still alive. That type of thing. It's your family tree. You can do it however you want, right? Some people choose to add maybe a step parent. Some people, their stepdad or stepmom has raised them their whole lives. They might do their stepmom or stepdad and do their whole family history through their step parent, right? There's a lot of different ways to do this. It's totally up to you. If you have any questions, let me know. Some people have said, I have a lot of problems with doing this project. If you think you're one of those people that is going to have issues with it, let me know. We can certainly find some other things for you to do. All right, and so we'll work through it. So don't get bent out of shape about this. This is just kind of an intro to the project, and there'll be plenty of time to work on this stuff throughout the semester. There'll be days we have in class to type stuff up, that type of thing. So this is just a preview, just kind of get going on the IGS.